I am doing an oil change on my GMC Envoy. It's a 2004. When you do an oil change, you always want to check your fluid levels. I already checked my fluid levels on my power steering fluid, but mine has a leak. So I wanted to throw that tip in there. If you've ever heard like an RC sound coming from your car, check your power steering fluid. That's the sound it makes when it's either low or empty. Mine was pretty close to bone dry. Again, it leaks pretty regularly, but if it's low, you want to fill it up. I already filled mine up because I checked that previously before doing this video. Because when I went to get the oil, I heard the RC sound. So if you hear the RC sound, you want to check your power steering fluid, which is this compartment here. Make sure it's filled up. Fill it if it needs it. That's something you should check when you're doing an oil change. Anyway, to do the oil change, you always remove the cap before you start. That way all the oil can actually drain out. My oil is in desperate need. So you remove the cap, and then you go underneath and you undo the bolt and everything else. Taking the nut off. Mine had got kind of stripped. As you can see, this is the nut. So I had to use a different type of socket to get it off. It's called a bolt grip. 13 millimeter. They look like that, and they will get that bolt off. You may have to knock it on with a hammer. I've already loosened it because I wanted to make sure I had it without the camera in my hands, but you would go counterclockwise with that. Once it's loose, you can usually turn it off with your hand. Make sure you have the oil catch underneath, because the oil will come out then pretty fast once it's off. And then you just let it drain. You let that drain completely, and once that's done, you would then take the filter out. The oil is pretty much stopped. You need to remove the oil filter, which is this thing right here. Tools don't work on our cars, so I had to do it by hand, so I'm not going to be able to record that part. It's just too hard to do it one-handed. It's hard enough as it is. For this part, you would put a little bit of oil along the rim of the filter that you're going to install in the car. You can also put some oil inside of the filter. I usually do that. You don't necessarily have to, but you do want to put some oil around the rim. Well, now that everything is put back together, I actually had to call the husband out to help with the filter because it just didn't want to budge. We've got a new filter in. Make sure you put oil around the gasket before putting it in. Don't over tighten it. I think that's what my problem was this time. That's why it was so hard. You now just put the oil back in to the car. I'm going to add just a little bit so I can check and make sure that nothing is leaking. Okay, now you've got your oil change done, and that pesky change engine oil light is still on. To reset it in my car, the 2004 GMC Envoy, you would turn your car to on, don't start it, pump the gas 3 times, within 5 seconds, turn it off. When you restart it now, that light should be gone. There you go. Now the check engine light